Hello, this is Ward Bryson coming back to you from Health Education at the Athens City County Health Department. You are listening to episode 2 of our Healthy Holidays series, where I meet with other folks serving in our community and we share healthy, plant-based recipes for your table during the holidays. Today I am joined once again by my fellow service member, Raya Abner. Raya, could you introduce yourself a little more briefly than you did the last episode?
Hello again, I'm Raya Abner. I am Ward's fellow ComCore member serving at Community Food Initiatives.
So we have Raya with us again today because we are all being careful in this time of COVID. My guest was actually a service member that is serving with Sojourners Resiliency Center this year, and they were not able to attend because they're feeling a little bit under the weather today. I feel like we should address that here because it is important while we're planning for our holiday celebrations to be mindful of COVID and to be mindful of other illnesses that always crop up around this time of year. Okay? So when you're gathering together with families, remember to make sure people are vaccinated, to test before you travel especially. There's a lot of people that can carry COVID asymptomatic even if they are vaccinated. And especially if you're meeting with anyone that's unvaccinated or going to be exposed in any way while traveling, you should be careful as best you can. So, that out of the way, let's talk about what we cooked today. Raya, the topic was mushrooms. How did it compare to squash?
Yeah, so I definitely preferred our squash day. I do like mushrooms, but I think mushrooms tend to be a contentious food. I know I personally tend to eat them on top of things, within things. I'm very much a mushroom on pizza person, but I never really eat mushrooms by themselves. But I am very pro-mushroom. Mushrooms are known for having great healing benefits. I actually do drink a lot of adaptogenic tea, which is made from mushrooms. So I am not completely unfamiliar with mushrooms, but this is my first time eating them as a main dish.
Yes, okay. And that is fair, is that both of our recipes today, one of them is really more of an appetizer, the other one is more of a side. In either case, I wouldn't want to eat just them either, but because we are doing each episode based on ingredient, that is what we have done. And I am honestly a mushroom fanatic, so it didn't upset me one bit. Our two recipes today, one of them is a sautéed button mushroom recipe. It's very simple, pretty simple sauté. The other one is a stuffed mushroom recipe using breadcrumbs and some other seasonings. The stuffed mushrooms are a great appetizer. The button mushrooms are a great side, or even, as Ray said, a topping. You could definitely top some kind of roast with it. You could serve it along something else that is maybe your main entree. As you know, a holiday plate goes, you pile everything on there, and it all gets mixed around. And unless you're into divided plates. So I'll go over the recipes real quick. For our button mushrooms, all you need were 6 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 1.5 pounds of whole small button mushrooms, wiped clean, 3 tablespoons of butter, sea salt to taste, or any other salt really, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, 1.5 teaspoons of fresh thyme leaves, chopped, or you can replace that with dried thyme, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, a half cup of white wine, or 1 tablespoon of chopped parsley leaves, or you could replace that with dried parsley. And so in this recipe, it's very straightforward. First, you just take a skillet, you heat your oil over high heat, and you add your mushrooms. You leave them for, say it took maybe like 4 or 5 minutes, and the bottoms will brown, caramelize a little bit. And once that's happened, you toss them again, and you can let them continue to cook for about 5 minutes. After those 5 minutes, you can add the butter. And then we used vegan butter. Obviously, this is our plant-based series, so you can sub whatever variety of vegan butter you prefer. And then you can cook and toss for another 5 minutes until they're a little bit more browned. After that, you're going to want to season with your salt and add the garlic. Saute another 2 minutes, and then add your thyme, lemon juice, and your white wine, your sherry, whatever you're using in that leg of the recipe. And then you're just going to cook that to evaporate the liquid. Once you've done that, you can toss in your parsley and serve immediately. In terms of servings, this produced a small bowl, maybe like 2 cups of finished mushrooms. And in terms of but for actually per person, I would say it serves 4 people. maybe a little bit more. You wouldn't want to have a ton of these. This is like your side dish, especially because this is a little bit oil heavy. This is really just to accent whatever your main course is. So it's good enough. You could multiply it for a larger family gathering. Our other recipe are stuffed mushrooms. In that case, your ingredients are 4 tablespoons of vegan butter at room temperature, 2 tablespoons of finely chopped parsley, 1 tablespoon of minced shallot, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, kosher salt and black pepper to taste, probably like a pinch of salt, enough to get a thin coating on the rest of the mushrooms, and likewise with the pepper. A half cup of plain panko breadcrumbs, and 2 dozen small cremini mushrooms. So it's like about a pound stemmed. And then finally 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And this is also a very straightforward recipe. You just preheat your oven to 425 degrees. You combine the vegan butter, the parsley, shallot, and garlic, season with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then stir in breadcrumbs until well combined. On a baking sheet, you're going to want to drizzle the mushrooms that have been stemmed with oil, season those also with salt and pepper, and then toss evenly to coat. Then if you arrange the mushrooms cavity side up and spoon about a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of breadcrumb mixture into each, you're going to have varying sized mushrooms. That is good enough. And then you can slip them into the preheated oven and bake until the mushrooms are tender and the breadcrumbs are golden and crispy, about 15 minutes. So, we just sampled these. Raya, which was your favorite?
I would say that the stuffed mushrooms were my favorite. I think the crunchiness of the breadcrumbs after baking in the oven really complemented the mushroom texture well, with the mushrooms being a little more soft, a little more chewy. I think it really benefits to have something that is crunchy with it. Makes it more palatable for folks who aren't super into the texture of mushrooms.
I can see that. I definitely prefer the sauté, but in either case, they're both a little bit heavy, a little bit, definitely for our series, heavier in oil content. I think in terms of each of the realms that they inhabit, the stuffed mushrooms are definitely more of an appetizer. You have that with some cranberry sauce if you had it at Thanksgiving, or you have that with whatever your Christmas spread is. That is very good, but I can definitely picture some kind of tofurkey roast or something with those mushrooms on the side. That would be really great. And while it's not necessarily an either or with these situations, I almost feel like you would not want to have both of these, too heavily featured in your lineup. Definitely, if you're going to do like something like a portobello roast as your entree, don't go all in on the mushrooms. But it's definitely a good accenting meal. I will say, in terms of making these, there are some tips we can give. When you're doing the button mushrooms, when you're roasting those on high heat, that's definitely going to cause your oil to smoke a decent little bit. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated preparing area. Make sure that there's some open windows, there's some fans going. Otherwise, it might get a little bit much. If you don't like garlic, you can sub that out for a little bit more onion or something like that. I know that some people are a little bit touchy about that, and garlic is definitely a very forward flavor in these recipes. The other thing is, as both these recipes have a very similar flavor profile, again, you might not want to double up with these, but one of them is a great little addition to the table. One thing I will note is because Raya tossed our mushroom stems that could be used at a later date. Definitely save those stems. You can cut those up, put them in a salad. You could saute those on their own. You could just have added the stems to the button mushrooms if you did the stuffed mushrooms first. We did it in the reverse order, but should have thought about that one. There's a lot of ways that you can use these. Raya, do you have any other ideas for how to accent these? What you think these would go good with? Perhaps if you've eaten similar dishes in your own life, like how you tend to serve those?
Yeah, I will add one thing though. If you happen to not save your stems to cook with, you could also throw them into your compost, because mushrooms, fungal systems are also very good for your garden. So that's another tip for still using your plant material. materials.
Leave it to the gardener to bring it back to gardens. Thank you, Raya. Okay, now on the food angle.
Yes, on the food angle. So like Ward has been saying, these are really excellent side dishes, but they're really not filling. So you're going to want to have them as an accent with something else. I think that the sauteed mushrooms would go really great with like a pasta Alfredo.
Likewise, rice or potatoes. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would definitely eat these over rice. Just given that we cooked them in olive oil and garlic, the flavor profile of them, the sort of like umami savoriness would go great with some sort of carb.
I can almost see the button mushrooms with a salad if you kind of drained those a little bit and then maybe mince them a little bit more.
Yes, mushrooms in general just go really great as a sort of side piece to something else. So, I mean, you may be listening and you're like, then why do I want to eat mushrooms if they're just sort of a side piece? But I think it's great to stress the health benefits of eating mushrooms. I mean, they're really fiber rich. They're full of antioxidants, which help your body relieve itself of oxidative stress. They're really rich in vitamins such as vitamin B and selenium. So, I mean, they are still full of health benefits to have, such as any other vegetable.
And if these recipes don't do it for you, you can just add your mushrooms to your salad. There's plenty of mushroom roast recipes. Maybe we'll have to revisit that later in the series. Whether that's, there's this mushroom Wellington I used to make all the time that is very good. But also you can just like roast some portobellos. Any of them, though, have those benefits that Ray is talking about. Any of them are great for you and for your family. And they do taste good. I disagree with Ray that they're not filling. They're fine, even if you're not as huge on mushrooms as I am. Especially, like, the fact that you can do little things with them. Like, when you stuff them and you just gouge them out, you can add breadcrumbs. And you can flavor that in ways that we didn't today. You can go an entirely different angle. You could go less garlic, maybe add in a little bit of celery, maybe add in a little bit of oregano or something other than our parsley and our thyme. There's a lot of directions that you can take with mushroom. And I am very grateful, Raya, that you can come and you can bring that perspective, the gardener's perspective, kind of that nutritionist perspective as well. We really appreciate you having you here. We are nearing time for this episode of the series. I would like to see you in the series again, but I'm also hoping to have some other voices show up from around Athens and from around Athens County and Athens City. So we will see what we have in store. This has been the mushroom episode. Do you have any final wise words about mushrooms or anything else?
Yes. Well, I will say thank you for having me, Ward. Even though I was on the last episode already, I will say that these episodes are introducing me to new foods. I had never eaten acorn squash before. I hadn't really cooked with mushrooms a whole lot, hadn't eaten them as a sort of main focus of my meal. So I can still provide that perspective of never cooking with these things, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners may be unfamiliar with these things, don't know how to use them, and would really benefit from having a perspective of never trying these things before and feeling a little hesitant to do so. So
I'm glad to help introduce these things to you, Raya. That is the point of the show for the participants here and for the people listening. And thanks to you all for listening as well. Ray and I have really appreciated being able to cook for you, even if it's over the internet, such as this.
Yes. So if you want any more plant-based recipes, you can continue to listen to the Athens City County Health Department Healthy Holidays podcast, or you can check out Community Food Initiative's Facebook or Instagram accounts, where we frequently post recipes using different seasonal produce throughout the year.
And there's the plug. Thank you for coming, Raya, and thank you to you for listening.